Hello, welcome to the webinar, Implementation of AAC. My name is Mary Van Donzel, and I am a speech-language pathologist with a special interest in the use of assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication to increase the communication skills of children with complex communication needs. This webinar is sponsored by the Idaho Assistive Technology Project. The information provided in this webinar does not represent an endorsement of any website or product mentioned. It is intended to be used for educational and informational purposes only. After completing this webinar, the learner will be able to state the 4 areas that encompass communicative competence, state why modeling with an AAC device is an important aspect of successful learning, define core vocabulary, and list the 4 aspects of the WRAP strategy. During the webinar, we will be discussing communicative competence and how it is important to AAC implementations. We will be exploring different strategies for AAC implementation, including modeling, core vocabulary, and language expansion. Curriculum implementation strategies, including ways to model AAC during reading, will be presented. I will also be sharing resources throughout the webinar to provide more ideas and/or information to the topics being discussed. It's always important to begin with an understanding of AAC. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. According to the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, AAC includes all forms of communication, other than oral speech, that are used to express thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. All forms of communication outside of verbal speech. AAC can consist of aided or unaided communication systems. An unaided communication system is one where an individual's body is used to communicate. This includes using gestures or sign language. Aided communication systems are those that use a tool of some sort for communication purposes. This could be the use of paper and pencil, letters, pictures, communication boards, speech-generating devices, and more. AAC systems can be either low-tech systems or high-tech systems. A low-tech system is a system that aids communication within a non-electronic manner. It does not require batteries or electricity. These would include eye gaze boards, picture books, communication boards, etc. A high-tech AAC system has an electronic component for voice output. These systems are things like computers, single-button voice output aids like the Big Mac, dedicated speech-generating devices, text-to-speech devices, or a communication app on mobile technology. Just as it's important to have an understanding of AAC, it is also important to have an understanding of communicative competence. The goal of AAC is communication. When working with a person with complex communication needs, it is important to facilitate the development of communicative competence, which leads to successful communication with others. So, what is communicative competence? Communicative competence was originally defined by Janice Light as the quality or state of being functionally adequate in daily communication, or of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, and skills to communicate. How does communicative competence relate to AAC? Well, a person who uses AAC needs to develop communicative competence in order to be a successful communicator. This is achieved by developing knowledge, judgment, and skills in the 4 areas of communicative competence. These areas include linguistic competence, operational competence, social competence, and strategic competence. Let's take a few minutes and discuss these competencies, what they mean, and how they relate to using AAC for communication. Linguistic competence encompasses 2 areas of linguistic code development. It includes the development of the linguistic code needed for the primary language, such as syntax, morphology, semantics, or phonology, as well as the development of the language code of the AAC system. Operational competence is the development of skills that are necessary to operate the AAC system that is being used. This would include body position or hand movement for unaided AAC, selection, navigation, and operational techniques for aided AAC. These 2 areas, linguistic competence and operational competence, relate to the knowledge, judgment, and skills that are developed in the tools of communication. Social competence is learning the functional use of AAC in order to communicate with others on a social arena. It includes 2 areas. The first, sociolinguistics, which is the area of pragmatic skills or the social aspects of language. Things like conversational turn-taking, maintaining a topic, using communication for different purposes, and more. The second area is socio-relational, which is the communication that facilitates in building relationship with others, such as participating in conversations, having an interest in communicating with a partner, etc. The 4th area of communicative competence is strategic competence. This competence refers to the developing of coping strategies to overcome limitations that occur within the areas of linguistic, operational, or social development. These coping strategies can be short-term, learned as needed, or they may even need to be used on a long-term basis, depending upon the needs of the individual. These 2 areas, social competence and strategic competence, encompass the knowledge, judgment, and skills that are needed to actually use the AAC system as a tool to communicate in everyday situations. Development of any skill is not simple, and the same can be said of communicative competence. There are other influences outside of linguistic, operational, social, and strategic competence that impact the successful development of communicative competence in people who use AAC. These areas include psychosocial factors, such as motivation for the desire to communicate, attitude, or the thoughts related to AAC from the user and their family, confidence, or the attempt to communicate in different situations, and resilience, or persistence to keep communicating. Environmental supports and barriers can also influence communicative competence. These would include policies that allow for funding or services, practicing communication partners with the person using AAC, attitudes towards those using AAC to communicate, knowledge related to the system itself, and the skill of the communication partner in using strategies to facilitate communication. Communicative competence may seem complex in all its components, but language development in children is complex. We do not expect an infant or toddler to master language in all its complexity within a short period of time. The same could be said of AAC. An AAC system is a new method of communication, and it is important to keep in mind each area of communicative competence as we work towards successful communication through the use of AAC. We must work towards mastery in the areas of linguistic competence to provide a solid foundation in the language being used, operational competence so that the user of AAC can actually operate their device, social competence to be able to use the AAC system for communication interactions with others, and strategic competence to have strategies to use when a difficult communication situation should arise. Once we consider communicative competence, where do we start with AAC implementation? It's always of utmost importance to start with high expectations. I found this quote once and I liked it a lot because it really summarized how I view expectations of my clients. It says, "My expectations are high for all my clients, no matter how severe their impairments, because I believe everybody deserves the best chance." If we don't give people who use AAC the opportunity to show us what they know, how will we ever truly know what they can do? Once we have those high expectations in mind, we turn to how does one actually begin to implement AAC. There really are a lot of ways that one can implement AAC. Today we will focus on implementation by becoming familiar with the AAC system, planning ahead, learning to model, using core vocabulary, expanding language, including AAC use within the curriculum, and exploring how AAC can be used for social interactions. It's very important that the communication partners become familiar with the AAC system that individuals are using. It doesn't matter if the system is a low-tech or a high-tech system. Familiarity and practice helps to take the nervousness out of using an AAC system. If there is a low-tech system, it would be important to know things like what type of vocabulary is available. Is it presented through a picture book or a communication board? Will the system available be enough, or do more symbols, messages, and pictures need to be included? For a high-tech system, it's important to know some of the basics of operations and some ways to troubleshoot. How is the system turned on and off? How are icons programmed? What access methods are available? And more. At the same time, it's important to know the communication software. How is the system navigated? Where are messages located? Is there an easy way to search for an icon? There are so many things to learn about communication systems, especially ones that are speech-generating devices. Information about the different AAC systems can be found on the manufacturer's website. Make sure you utilize it. Each website is unique in that it offers information related to their devices. There are things like user manuals and guides, webinars and training videos for both parents and professionals, lesson plans, and implementation strategies. There is often information about technical support, different blogs, and social media connections available to follow for connecting with others and getting the latest information and updates that are available. As a professional, exploring the manufacturer's websites can be useful for learning more about the AAC system and how to use it. But it's also helpful for us to know what information is available for the parents so that we can provide them with more specific information related to where to go and what to look for. Being able to provide more specific information for parents helps to decrease the feeling of being overwhelmed with all that there is available to them. There are many different websites that are available, but here is a list of some of the more common websites for the companies that make a variety of AAC systems and devices. These sites include Tobii Dynavox, Prent Keromic Company, Saltillo, TouchChat, FRS Custom Solutions, Assistiveware, and LAMP Words for Life. If you need a different website for a manufacturer and don't have the direct link, make sure you Google the name and locate the direct link for yourself. If the AAC system being used is a low-tech system, or if you would like to have a communication board available, then there are websites that also provide pre-made communication boards. These communication boards are free and allow for the use of modeling of AAC, as well as provide an option for the communication if an AAC device is not available. If you are looking for a specific communication board and cannot find what you are looking for from these links, then take advantage of the internet and Google free communication boards. There are a lot of sites that offer communication boards. AAC can be a daunting process, especially in the beginning. As you begin to implement the use of AAC within the classroom, it is important to feel prepared to help overcome this feeling. It may take some time in the beginning, but with some extra preparation, the successful use of AAC will come. Start by planning ahead. Think of ways that communication occurs throughout the day. Are there specific vocabulary scripts that can be utilized with the activities that are planned? Some of these activities may be routine, so the planning is bigger in the beginning and only adjustments are needed later on. Communication can occur during routines such as daily schedules, lunch choices, or specific activities that occur on a daily basis like free reading time. As new activities come about, prepare by knowing where the vocabulary is on the AAC device, or have the pictures available if using a low-tech communication system. It's always a good idea to start small when implementing AAC within the classroom. The long-term goal is to use the AAC system throughout the day and consistently in all areas. But as planning begins to implement the system, start with 1 or 2 activities where the AAC system is incorporated into the structure of the activity. Then, increase where the AAC system is used each week. For example, maybe using the AAC system begins to be used in the morning routine and free reading in the afternoon. After the first week, 2 more activities, such as reading and lunch, are chosen to use the AAC system. Each week builds upon a new activity where AAC is used for communication, allowing for continued growth in communication and in academics. Even though the implementation starts small, it's important to remember that everyone deserves to communicate. So the person's AAC system should always be available to them. And the ultimate goal is that we are all modeling the use of the AAC system throughout the day in many contexts and activities. Modeling is a way to show the person using AAC how to use their device within the context of the activity. It helps to teach vocabulary location, device navigation, and language and communication skills. Modeling can be referred to as many names. These names could include aided modeling or aided language stimulation and many others. Modeling with AAC is important for the same reason we model language for a typically developing child. It helps their language grow. In a study completed by Hart and Risley in 1995, it was found that in a working class family, a 3-year-old child hears 1,251 words per hour. That equates to 6.5 million words per year. That's a lot of words that a typically developing child hears, which is stimulating their language development. What do you think a child who needs an AAC system hears from an AAC device? Minimal to none. When a child uses AAC, it is vital to model AAC use because it provides the stimulation of language to increase communication. Modeling the use of AAC is also important because it provides the motivation to learn an AAC system, and it also increases the speed it takes to learn the system. Let's take a few minutes and watch this short Powtoons video that does a really nice job of showing how modeling of AAC works to teach a child to use their device.
Created using Powtoon. Created using Powtoon.
The video really shows the importance of modeling. The key point of modeling is that it shows that AAC works for communication, showing the power of communication to the person using AAC. Using the same or similar AAC system as the user is important, but a variety of modalities can be utilized for modeling. These would include communication boards, another device, or a similar communication app. Devices or iPads with communication apps can be rented for a period of time from the Idaho Assistive Technology Project, and this is also an option to obtain an AAC system to use for modeling. It's ideal to use a device that is different than the user's system, but if there is not another option, then modeling of AAC can be done using the AAC system of the individual. Modeling should occur across environments, activities, and contexts. Modeling can occur during games, social interactions, academic work, book reading, etc. Remember, it's okay to start small, but increase the modeling opportunities so that modeling occurs consistently throughout the day. It's also important to keep in mind that modeling needs to occur with vocabulary, communicating the message, or modeling the icon sequence. This is important even if the person using AAC does not respond. Even though they do not respond, does not mean they are not learning the skill, and they may just surprise you by independently selecting the message appropriately at a later time. I know that this has happened to me in my own experience. Communication does not occur in a bubble. It occurs everywhere. Modeling of AAC should be the same. Modeling of AAC should occur in a variety of communication functions, not just when requesting. Communication modeling can occur as comments, labels, asking questions, gaining the attention of others, sharing information, and so much more. I know that telling jokes is something that I have observed all children enjoy and can be a great tool for modeling of AAC too. The more you practice modeling of AAC, the more spontaneity that will occur in using the AAC system for the user and the person modeling. Be persistent when modeling AAC. Don't just give up because the person using the AAC system is not imitating the model. Remember that modeling is about showing the user that their AAC system is used for communication. Be patient with the response time of the person using AAC as well. Sometimes it takes them a little longer to plan what they will communicate. There are many resources for modeling, but here are a few links that give you some information and/or ideas about modeling of AAC in different contexts and situations. Another concept to consider when implementing AAC into the classroom is core vocabulary. Core vocabulary is a set of words that are frequently used within a language and can vary across contexts. Core vocabulary consists mainly of pronouns, verbs, descriptor words, and question words. Fringe vocabulary are words that are not used as frequent. They are often context or topic specific and are mainly nouns. An example of the difference between a core vocabulary word and a fringe vocabulary word would be want and cookie. The word want is considered a core vocabulary word, and it can be used in a variety of environments or contexts in order to communicate. The word cookie, however, is a fringe vocabulary word and could only be used or only needed for communicative importance if there were cookies available or in certain specific situations or settings. Core vocabulary is frequently an option in communication software programs, even if the language software contains more topic-based message icons. To begin using core vocabulary, choose a few words that could be used throughout the day or within a specific activity and increase the vocabulary presented as learning occurs. Here's something to consider when looking at core vocabulary. If you were given a 3x3 grid with 9 spaces in total, what messages would you put in the grid to be able to communicate in a variety of environments throughout the day? Keep in mind that you would want to use your communication board across contexts and environments to be able to communicate a variety of messages. For example, you will play Go Fish and need to communicate during the game. Then you will need to go to lunch using that same board. What sort of core vocabulary words might you use in your board? Here's an example of a communication board that I might create to use with a client throughout the day or in several different activities. As you can see, it allows the person using AAC to ask questions, indicate that they need help, indicate that they want to go, make requests for more of something, as well as be able to answer yes and no questions. This may not be the best board for all situations, but it's an example of what might be created with core vocabulary to increase communication across environments and contexts. The core vocabulary words have been chosen. So how does one go about teaching the core vocabulary itself? These ideas were shared by Carol Zangari on the website practicalaac.org. The first thing to do is to provide access to core vocabulary. This can be done through communication boards, picture books, or speech-generating devices, whatever AAC system is being used. It's important to make sure that there is enough vocabulary for communication. Provide more vocabulary than you think the person using AAC knows, and remember to model the vocabulary. And keep in mind, high expectations are key. Add more vocabulary as the person using AAC begins to learn it, adding more vocabulary all the time. Providing frequent opportunities to practice the core vocabulary is important. As they learn the vocabulary in one context, make sure the words are carried over to other contexts and settings to increase exposure and practice. Make sure that you are providing support to the person using AAC. They are learning a language system, and they will need support, especially in the beginning. When teaching core vocabulary words, It's not always about mastery of the words before moving on to new words. Expose the person using AAC to more vocabulary as they begin to show signs of learning the vocabulary that's being presented. It doesn't mean that you are forgetting the vocabulary they are learning, but it does allow for more vocabulary to be introduced, which ultimately will increase what types of communication can occur. There are many core vocabulary resources available, and these are only a small portion of what's out there. Here are a few resources available that provide lists of core vocabulary words, different activities that can be used to facilitate core vocabulary development, and some ideas about how to support the nonverbal student in learning core vocabulary within the classroom setting. Modeling has begun and is increasing all the time in the classroom. Core vocabulary is being used, and new vocabulary words are being introduced all the time. So what else is there to do? Well, there is plenty. Communication is not a limited topic or limited to certain situations or limited to using only one-word messages. Communication grows and expands, and support needs to be provided in order for communication and language to continue to expand. Modeling provides a great opportunity to expand language and communication. If the person using AAC is only selecting one icon to communicate their message, then expand their message by saying more words and modeling the icons or icon sequence. For example, if the icon selected was boy, then the message can be expanded by saying, "Oh, you see the boy," while the icons see and boy are selected and sequenced. Language expansion is a great tool to continue language growth and increase communication complexity. AAC is a means of communication, so it is very important to the person who is using an AAC system to be able to communicate. Communication can occur at any time, and therefore AAC can be used at any time, including within the classroom and during instruction. It's important to be creative when incorporating AAC within the classroom. Instructions can include a variety of AAC options, such as picture books or communication boards, single message or multi-message voice output switches, speech generating devices, and text-to-speech software. Availability of AAC systems to communicate is also crucial throughout the day. An AAC system may not be needed during the math instruction, but it should be accessible for the person using AAC to communicate if they need or want to. One of the questions that can be asked is, can a person who does not speak still learn to read? The answer is yes. One's ability to communicate does not equate to literacy skills. The longer we wait to introduce literacy, the longer it takes to learn it. Adapt books so that they are accessible to those with motor issues. Use electronic books. Start with phonological awareness skills. Expose them to sounds, letters, words, sentences. Whatever you do, do it. It's worth it. Literacy activities can assist with building communication, providing opportunities to learn new vocabulary, to model communication with the AAC system. Reading provides a fun activity, and they might just find it fun. There's educational purposes for teaching literacy, according to curriculum standards as well. But as always, one of the keys is to set the bar high. They can reach it. Again, have high expectations. Kent Walsh Binger and colleagues have developed a program called Impact Program to provide communication partner instruction for children who use AAC. Two strategies that were developed through this program are the RA and RAP strategies. These strategies are great ways to model AAC use and participate in language expansion within a storybook activity, something that is usually a fun activity for children. Both strategies are mnemonics, with RA standing for read, ask, answer, and RAP standing for read, ask, answer, prompt. The RA strategy is used for single-syllable elicitation, whereas the RAP strategy is for single or multiple symbol elicitation. I will review the RAP strategy, knowing that RA is the same strategy without the added step of prompt and with the use of only single syllables. When reading a book, you would first read the text and model two symbols with the AAC system to make a comment about the text, pausing for about 5 seconds to give time for a response. Next, you would verbalize a WH question, modeling the two-symbol question on the AAC system and pausing for about 5 seconds for a response. The third step would be to verbally answer the question and then model the two-symbol answer on the AAC system, pausing for about 5 seconds for a response. The last piece would be to prompt, if it was needed. You would provide a 2 to 3 word prompt such as your turn or show me too, to give the child the opportunity to use the AAC system. This strategy would be repeated with each new page. If you want to use picture boards with the RA or RAP strategies, there are AAC boards available at the AAC collaboration website at the link provided. There are many resources related to reading and teaching literacy to individuals with complex communication needs. Resources from adapting books to providing ebooks to techniques to provide instruction to people with complex communication needs. It takes some time to review the information or to prepare the lessons to teach literacy and reading, but it is well worth it. Again, what is there to lose if you expect it? They might just meet you at the high expectations. One of the biggest reasons we communicate is to interact with others, so use AAC in social interactions. Peers can be a strong motivator for people who use AAC, especially if they aren't the adult or the teacher. Peers can be used within the special education classroom or the general education classroom. You just need to be creative. Peers can facilitate communication opportunities outside of requesting. creating conversations about likes and dislikes, activities, movies, music, fashion, foods, or games. The possibilities are really endless. You can facilitate social interaction by creating opportunities within the classroom and other environments in the school. This may take a little extra planning, but the payoff of successful communication with the AAC system would be well worth it. Scripts could be used to facilitate communication, and peers could be taught how to model AAC use within an AAC system. Create opportunities for a group of students to participate in an interactive game. There are so many ways to facilitate social interaction. The key is to include the AAC system so that the AAC user has a means to communicate. I've already shared resources regarding some of the topics we have discussed, but there are always more that can be found. The Idaho Assistive Technology Project provides information related to AAC and AT, which includes a lending library, school-based consultation services, trainings, and more. AAC Buy-In at Home is an article that discusses one school's success with an AAC user and carryover of device use within the home. And of course, there are always a lot of websites that can provide information related to AAC, including Glinda's Assistive Technology information and more, practicalaac.org, Assistive Technology Industry Association, and so many more. Definitely Google AAC topics and see what's available for you. So here are a list of my references if you would like any further information about the topics that were discussed today. Thank you for listening to this webinar about implementation of AAC. I hope you found it beneficial.